Well, my family raised about 20 acres. It was a rotation crop with our hay crops. So it was basically more or less 20 acres of potatoes. And our high school, because it was all done by hand, our high school let out 2 weeks at harvest time so the high school kids could help with the harvesting of the potatoes. I did not know Lena at all, but she was best friends with a family that was close to us, and they were like a family to us. So the oldest son of that family, and decided that he and I ought to pick off the end of her row so she couldn't get her 100 sacks, which is the goal every day. And then the next day I invited her and her friend. It was hot, and we had big, tall poplar trees, and so I invited them to sit in our cool grass and our shade and eat their lunches, and we ate in the house. After we ate, I came out and offered them ice cream, and they all were excited about it. So I went in the house and I got some ice and poured some cream over it and sprinkled some sugar on it and took it out and gave it to them. And I didn't know that she was a pitcher on a baseball team, and she took one of those pieces of ice and hit me right between the nose, and I literally knocked me down to my knees. I saw stars, and that's how we met. And we got married, and then I was told in the fall that they'd had a bad year and I wouldn't be able to work through the wintertime. This is in Oregon. There were no jobs after that. Everything, the snow came and the ice and everything was closed down. So my mother said, well, Boeing Aircraft from Seattle, Washington, which is about 350 miles away, was in the county seat looking for workers, and you need to go down there. So being a good son, I went down to the county seat and applied, and so I was a pretty good mechanic. So I guess that was the basis they hired me. And they offered me twice what I'd ever made, so I took it. It was the Lord taking us to Seattle, and I did not like it. I was a cattle rancher, and that's what I wanted to do, and I was pretty bitter about it. All of a sudden, we noticed there was a house. It was kind of a draw out of our dining room. Anyway, they put a cross on it, and we weren't too happy about that, Lena especially. And so, but they began to visit us. No one else visited us. And this was a religion that we weren't really in favor of. But they visited us, and one day we were late going to church, so we decided to go over to that little house across the little draw. And when we walked up on the steps, we knew that's where the Lord wanted us. There was a spirit there. There was God-fearing people, and it was just a small, basically a family and a few other people. I should say first, Leslie, when we were up in Seattle, surrendered to be a missionary. He was probably about 4 years old, I guess. So one of the missionaries we met in Seattle, Washington, the one that interested Leslie felt called under, was at the seminary, presented his work, and I felt like the Lord was calling us to the mission field. We prayed about it, and I just felt definitely that's what God's calling was. Well, when we graduated from seminary, I'd been praying for a place to serve the Lord until I knew where I was going to go. So a real good friend of mine had taken a church in San Antonio, Texas, and he asked me, he came to a meeting where I was, and he asked me if the Lord had led me to a church yet, and I said no. He said, well, let me invite you to the church we have in San Antonio. It's not very big, but we'd like you to come down there and work with us. We couldn't pay you, but you could work and help us build it up. And so the Lord led us to San Antonio, Texas, and we were there about a year when this same missionary from Honduras came back through, and it really burdened my heart. So I prayed, and about midnight that night, I just knew in my heart that Honduras was the place. And we both felt that was God's will for us. And Lena was very active. She had a private school, the only private school in western Honduras at the time. And we just worked together. I think because we were best of friends when we started out. We were best of friends before we decided to get married. So I think that's the key, friendship. And we've continued building that friendship. doing things that both of us like to do and taking time to enjoy each other. Right now we go nearly every day and go out and have a cup of coffee together, iced coffee.
God's put him in my life for a reason, and after 60 years, I'd say he passed that test. Found your marriage on Christ. He should be the center of your marriage. And like Harold has said in this afternoon, you need to be friends. There's a difference between loving and liking, and if you don't like to be with your partner, you're in trouble. And communication is so important. If you don't communicate, the other person doesn't know what you feel about things or what you want to do. Or the basic thing is to be on the, as they say today, be on the same page. Know what each other wants out of life and what you expect of each other. And serving God, of course, we try to do all things together and have the same opinion and not be diversified as far as he says one thing and I say another, but to be consistent in what we're presenting. And that helps in a marriage also, because if you're not consistent, it's very, very difficult. But I put communication just way, way up at the top. First of all, you have God in your life and in your marriage, and then communication between the two. Certain things in marriage are private and should be kept private. If I have a complaint about him, I go to him. I don't go to someone else. The Lord first and him. And if God gives me a husband, gives me children, and we have 4, then he intends for me to take care of them. And I have tried to provide them with the things that they need, take care of their physical needs, their emotional needs, their spiritual needs. And having come from another country to Honduras, I don't expect all my children, okay, mom and dad are missionaries, I have to be missionaries. No, I expect them to do whatever God leads them in their life to be. And our children are working in various different fields. And we try to spend time with them and time individually with them and as a group. And the same for my husband. We try to set aside some time, and like he said, sometimes we just run out and get some coffee, or we go out to eat, or we just take a drive in the country or sit down and talk. That way I know where he is in his spiritual needs too, because as a missionary and pastor of works, you carry a lot of people's problems, and you don't have anyone else to go to, because we've never felt it a wise practice to tell our church members our personal problems, because they misunderstand and don't take it in the right way. So if I don't have time for him, then I'm failing him, because I am supposed to be his helper and not be against him. So those are things we do, and with my husband in particular, I have tried to maintain that I keep my personal appearance acceptable. I have never had the attitude, okay, he chose me, so I don't have to take care of myself anymore. I try to keep my hair neat and combed and makeup and clothes, and not go around like some women I know that go around all day long in their bathrobe or pajamas. And that isn't very pleasing when he goes out to do his mission work and I stay home and he comes back and I'm still in the same nightgown. That's, to me, not respectful of him. And he expects more of me, and I should expect more of myself too. So I think doing small things, being there when whether it was my husband or children needed me, to be able to just sit down and talk to them, or go somewhere they wanted to go and have private time with them so they can express themselves and accept what they say. It's very important to protect and guard your personal testimony. And as was mentioned, I don't counsel men or go with other men somewhere alone, and he doesn't do the same with women. If we have a counseling session, we make an appointment and we both are present, or someone else is. So that way there's no misunderstanding and there's not time to build mistrust in each other or what each other might be doing. It's very important as in ministry, but it's true in just regular life also. You need to be very careful about what you do and what you say and who you're with. We teach that to our children, but we need to obey it ourselves. Well, Harold's been very good about presenting me with little gifts along the way. And that way I know when he's not with me, he's thinking of me. And like he mentioned, we go out to coffee quite often, but sometimes he goes with a friend or he's just out doing something and he'll stop and bring me something home. And flowers, candy, whatever. But the most important thing I say is for him to express himself to me, that he likes what I'm doing for him. Because if you're not appreciated, it's very difficult to do all the things that you do in marriage and in a family if you don't feel like you're appreciated. So these little things make me know that I'm appreciated. And no matter what happens, we're together on this. All of our children are saved, going to church, and not just going, but serving in different ways in church. And it's gone into our grandchildren. So it's gone 3 generations, and so that's very important to us to know that the way we have lived our life has had an effect on them. And not just kids that, of course, are at home with you all the time, but even to the 3rd generation, that they've seen something in us and they want that also in their lives. And that's very important.
I want to speak to my kids and grandkids and whoever might listen to this. It's a building process, and when you neglect a building, it goes to pot. If it's an adobe building, it falls down. And that's what happens to most marriages. It needs to be a strong friendship and the need to continue building it, attending to it, buy flowers, which I've been kind of negligent lately, but going out together for coffee, going out to eat, so to speak, dates. If you take love in the Bible, it's 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and love is service. It's not an emotion. Emotions deceive you, and they aren't lasting. But serving each other builds a bond, just like it does with the Lord. Very important to know what love really is.